Now let's take a look at the first step of activity one, and it's going to overlap with these other ones just a little bit. You're actually going to do them all sort of at one time. And so the videos I'm going to show you won't be necessarily exactly step by step, but you'll get the idea by watching the videos. So the first thing you need to do is make an assembly view. That allows you to really know that you can put this thing together, and you have to do your drawing in such a way that somebody else could understand it fully. So let's take a look. I'm going to use my existing files and create an assembly view. Now, what I did was actually save my file as a new one. So I opened it up and I saved it with a new name. That way I didn't mess up any of my old stuff. And that's just so that I can go back if I need to. In working industry, you would do this all as revisions or as different parts of the same file. But I made a new file. And in my new file, I made a new scene. And remember, mine was a pulley of some sort that was going to hook on. And so let's see what I've done here. I've made an assembly drawing, and I need to identify each of the parts that will be put together and give them a unique number. Let's see if I've done that. Here I've got 1, 2, actually I'll go in order. 1, it's an adapter. That's going to slide onto here, you'll see. 2 is a pulley, and it's got a little hole for the wire to go through. That'll be a part of a different part of the job. And notice I didn't do it great. I don't have my hole right in the center and all that kind of stuff, but it gives enough of an idea that a designer could start making the details of this part from it. So I've got my little adapter that will slide onto the rod. I've got a pulley that will slide onto the adapter, and that pulley has the same shape already attached to the front of it, and it's got a place to wind the wires up. Okay, and then I've got another one of the exact same one. One of them will wind the wire from the top, the other will wind the wire from the bottom, so that as it goes, they do the same job of lifting the bed. So I've got 1, 2 of the same item. I called it item 2. And then I called it item number 3 is my ratchet. And then I wasn't really sure somebody could tell how this went together. So I made another view that shows that this will lock onto that rod. And then this has the mating part cut into it so it can slide over this. And notice this funny shape. That's called a spline. And that's so that as you turn it, it actually transmits the torque. That's called a spline. And then it's the same thing. It'll lock on, and it's the same spline that's on the ratchet. So those things would all collapse onto each other and hook together. And then one turn of the ratchet would turn this, which would turn this, which would turn this, which would turn the rod. Okay, so that's how I put it together. So I've got a little bit of an explanation in my assembly drawing so that somebody knows how it would go together. And in my pulley, I've got itemized numbers for each one. And where I use the same item over again, I give it the same item number. Let's see what I did there. I identified the individual parts, and I've given them each a unique ID number. And so now I have to figure out what already exists. Okay? And I have to identify new parts. Let's see if I've done that. I have to make this item and this item and this item. So I've got, that's a new part. I have to make it. New part, item 1. New part, item 2. And then item 3, I say I'm going to ratchet it. I'm going to purchase that. It already exists. And item 4, which is my garage door mechanism, it already exists. It's an existing part. But I know I'm going to have to do something on the end of it so that I can slide this adapter on. So I've just noted that. That's an existing part. So I've identified the existing parts, which are my rod and my ratchet, and I've identified the new parts. And now I need to make a list of those. Okay, and you can do that list. I've got them drawn out here, but I want it on a list. And that can be just a Word document or a Google Doc or a WordPad, or it can be an Excel spreadsheet with a list. I don't really care, but you'll just need to have a list in a file, a separate file. Okay, so that is your activity 1. Make an assembly view. That's going to be the majority of your work. And just focus on one or more of your improvements. I had 2 improvements, and I'm only going to focus this week on one of them. I'll worry about my other one at another time. Okay, so I'm really focusing down here. But I have to know it's going to work, and I have to have something that looks pretty real so I can start identifying, okay, this thing here has to go inside of this hole. That's going to help the detailer understand, obviously, this part that's called a male spline will have to be a little bit smaller than the female spline for it to go in. And I haven't given too many details about it. I haven't told how many splines there are, or how deep it is, or how much torque it has to do, or what material it has to be made out of, or what type of fit I want, or how they'll lock together. Those are all detailed design items that a detailer will do once the concept is good enough for them to be able to do it. Now, those would all be items that would come up in a second design review, in the approval process. And if there's enough information where the designer goes, yeah, I can look that up. I have a book of splines, and I have a book of ways that things lock together, and I have a book that shows me how big or how small they have to be. And I have a book on torque, so I know how much they can. The detailer will tell you if you have enough information for them to start working on. Now, sometimes that detailer is you, but sometimes you have to pass this off to another person. So there we go. We have done the majority of the good work here. We've made an assembly view. We've identified which parts already exist that we either go buy or buy and then modify. And we've identified what is new. And we focused it primarily on the new design. And the only thing I haven't really talked about or demonstrated much is making this list. But I think you can make a list of 4 parts. Okay, so there we go. And it's good to use scenes. If you want to see how I've done this, I took my original, okay, and I made a copy of this file. So these were all from my originals. And then you'll see I made a copy of all of that, and I started working up close over here. So I made a copy of my original design work, moved it into a second area of my SketchUp model where I could start working on it. Okay, there you go. That is activity 1 for Design 320 Week 10 assignment guide, which is customized design, and we're doing some design development.